Hey guys, Tyler here, and thanks for checking out this video. And Dragonflight is going to be upon us very soon, in fact by the end of the year, but we've still not seen our Marksman Hunter talent trees. So that gave me the opportunity to go ahead and make my own wish list, so to speak, of abilities both old and new that I would like to see make their way into Dragonflight. Well, I'll go ahead and talk about a few abilities that are old, as well as some Azerite powers that I think would do nicely to help smooth out the Marksman Hunter build, and then some abilities that are currently in the game or even just need a little bit of tweaking or reverting to make Marksman Hunter so much more fun to play and much less clunky. So, let's get started.
Mr. Eggplant presents.
So really quick, some background on myself. I've been playing my Hunter for over 15 years. I started back in the middle of Burning Crusade, and I played almost every iteration of Marksman Hunter, both the good and the bad, and I do have experience playing the old survival dot spec in Cataclysm. I get AOTC every single tier, and I try to venture into Mythic, and then I do have cutting edge experience as well, but it has been a little bit since I've been in that territory. I try to push myself as much as possible in Mythic Plus, and then I also do make guides here on YouTube, and I have been doing that since 7.1.5, so I've got to play both the good and the bad when it comes to Marksman, and I'm really hoping that some of these ideas that I bring up in this video will see the light of day when it comes to Dragonflight, but I would encourage you guys to leave me a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts, and let's go ahead and jump into the video. So this video is going to be cut up into several different sections, and this first section is going to be all about the Shadowlands talents we currently have. Some of these I hope go ahead and make the jump right into Dragonflight. Some I hope get reverted or retooled just a little bit, and then some of them they just need to go ahead and remove completely. So for the ones that I hope they keep exactly the same, those are going to be Natural Mending, Post Haste, Double Tap, Volley, Lock and Load, and Calling the Shots. I would keep Natural Mending because we don't have that many defensives as a Marksman Hunter, so being able to lower the cooldown of your Exhilaration, which is your pocket heal, by 1 second every time you spend 20 focus is very imperative to our survivability for both PvE and PvP. And for Post Haste, it's been in the game for such a long time, and it hasn't really changed at all, and I don't foresee that changing in Dragonflight. So it's the go-to PvP and PvE ability, and you will notice a lot of these are passives and not actual abilities. So whenever you disengage, it just removes the roots, any movement impairing effects. It's perfect for those Marksman Hunters in PvP that want to kite people infinitely with Concussive Shot, and also it has a PvE use where you can get out of roots and other movement impairing effects. As for the damage altering talents, we have Double Tap, which basically fires an additional aim shot if you use Double Tap on aimed, or it makes Rapid Fire do 100% additional shots during that channel. It gives you nice flexibility in your build, and it also makes us incredibly bursty, whether that be in PvP or PvE. And just thinking about class flavor, that really fits the bill, and I know that Blizzard is really high on class flavor, and it does give you a nice bit of flexibility whether you want to do more damage with aim shot, or you need a little bit more focus while still doing some great damage with Rapid Fire. And the next ability I'm kind of iffy on, which is Volley. So I personally think Volley should just be baseline for Marksman Hunters, but if it does have to be a talent, I would be fine with that. So the way Volley works is it gives you 6 seconds of a volley of arrows raining down, and it gives you trick shots. That's the most important bit of it. The one nice thing about Volley is even for some reason, if your enemy leaves that area while Volley is still active, you still get the trick shots buff, which is actually more important than the damage that Volley provides itself. And Volley will be still very important for 2-target cleave for Marksman Hunters, unless they change the way we get trick shots, or if they don't implement our 4-set from the Sepulchre tier pieces. And these last 2 talents are actually passives, one being Lock and Load and the other being Calling the Shots. And Calling the Shots did not see much play at all here in Shadowlands, unfortunately. With the changes to True Shot and then the change to Master Marksman to go to a bleed instead of giving you the free arcane/multi-shot every time you use an aim shot, Calling the Shots wasn't really played with at all, but it is one of the strongest and most coveted legendaries that we had in Legion, which it lowers the cooldown of your biggest damaging ability, which should be True Shot. So if they were to revert Master Marksman to BFA, for example, Calling the Shots would be instantly boosted because of it. And Lock and Load was great for both PvP and PvE, where it would just randomly give you an additional aim shot, which was free and instant, which was great for any situation, particularly Burst, since that is our Marksman Hunter flavor. And those are the talents I think they should move to Dragonflight exactly the way they are, but these will be the talents I think they should just straight up remove from the game as they're not really needed or really serving a purpose anymore. And the first one would be Murder of Crows. So it used to be something you would pick, like back in Legion, for example. Unfortunately, the damage has gone down every single expansion that it's been back, and then also it is a 1 minute long cooldown, so it's a really long cooldown for the amount of damage it does. And yes, you can reset the cooldown if you kill the enemy while they have the Murder of Crows dot on them, but it still doesn't really do enough damage to make it worthwhile. The next ability would be Serpent Sting, and we've seen Serpent Sting do really well if it's a passive. So if anything, I hope they would remove it as an actual ability and move it into a passive, whether that be like Serpent Stalker's Trickery did for the first 2 tiers of this expansion. Whenever you use your aim shot, it automatically puts a Serpent Sting on the target, so you don't have to waste a full global or focus to keep it up, or even making it a passive on multi-shot with Serpent Spread, which I'll talk about here in just a few minutes. That was something that we had back in Legion. The other 2 abilities I think they should just remove would be Binding Shackles and Deadeye. So with Binding Shackles, it really didn't see hardly any use at all, and in fact, I didn't even use it in PvP as well. Post Haste was always on the same talent row, and Post Haste is so much better than Shackles. They should just remove Shackles or make it a passive. And then finally, Deadeye, because you don't actually use that many kill shots unless you're a Venthyr Marksman Hunter this expansion. You don't get to put out a ton of kill shots, so there's no real reason to have 2 charges. And then for most of this expansion, we've run with really low haste, which means our focus regeneration is really low too. So we would always run into the chance where we would not have enough focus to cast that aim shot that it would recharge 60% faster with this talent. So because of this, unfortunately, I feel like Deadeye just does not do enough to make it worth taking it as a talent point. And these last couple of talents I'd like to see reworked into a different ability or just reverted to a previous version of the talent. So the first one would be Steady Focus. So Steady Focus has been the go-to single target ability for most of the expansion, and just whenever you use your Steady Shot twice, you get 7% haste for 15 seconds. I feel like if they would just retool that back into the In the Rhythm that we had as an Azerite trait in BFA. So basically the way In the Rhythm worked was every time you used your rapid fire, you got a flat amount of haste for 8 seconds afterwards. That works really well so you can continue to run low haste, much like you did with Steady Focus, and then you don't have to worry about trying to min-max and always keep it up. And then a couple of the other abilities, one being Careful Aim. It's actually one of my favorites from this expansion. The previous version of it in BFA was the 80-20 zone, so that means your aim shots did 50% more damage above 80% and below 20%. I don't get as much value out of the kill shot now that it's back in that 20% zone, so because of that, you have to pretty much front load all your damage within the first 30% of the boss's health with the current talent. I'd like to see them revert that to go back to the 80-20 zone to give your aim shot a little bit extra pump at the very end of a boss fight, and because of that, most likely drop kill shot altogether, or at least make kill shot something that could be a talent, or Careful Aim be the other talent. And then the other ability would be Lethal Shots, because Lethal Shots by itself is not very good. Whenever you cast your Arcane Shot or your Multi-Shot, you have a 30% chance to lower the cooldown of your Rapid Fire by 5 seconds. That's not very good right now because Rapid Fire is kind of meh at best every 20 seconds. But if they added In the Rhythm instead of having Steady Focus, your Rapid Fire becomes much more powerful because it increases your focus regeneration and it gives you haste for your other abilities. And one talent I forgot to mention earlier that I would like to keep the same would be Explosive Shot. I like this version of Explosive Shot when it come back to being a dot. I didn't like the projectile that you had to make sure and let it reach your target that we had in Legion. It was not really fun to play at all, but with this version, I really think it fits the bill perfectly, and I hope it finds its way onto either the base kit for a Marksman Hunter or at least the talent tree if nothing else. And then last but not least, things that we have in Shadowlands currently would be Covenant abilities. So I've looked at a couple of the different trees. They had between 1 and 2 of the Covenant abilities available in those trees. So because of that, I went ahead and picked 2 for this video. The ones I hope to see would be Death Chakram and Flayed Shot. One of the main reasons I did not pick Resonating Arrow or Wild Spirits is I don't like to have to constantly throw things on the ground to do damage. I want the power to be in the hands of the hunter and not because I threw a circle on the ground and the circle arrow is what does damage. So because of that, the Death Chakram, it does a little bit of bonus damage. The damage isn't really what you get out of that. You get bonus amount of focus per hit, and it makes your targets take 10% more damage. And plus, if they go ahead and add the Unity ability in there as well, where it puts a explosive shot on up to 2 targets hit by that Death Chakram, it would be immediately a huge damage increase, both for single target and for AoE. And then the other Covenant ability that I would potentially pick would be Flayed Shot. So if they don't pick Black Arrow, which I'll talk about here in a few minutes, jumping ahead of myself, I would like to see Flayed Shot if they keep Kill Shot around. If Kill Shot does not make Dragonflight, then I think Flayed Shot should leave entirely, and I would like to see them bring back Black Arrow, which would then make Explosive Shot much more important as well. And also a reason I wouldn't pick Resonating Arrow, I'd like to see them take the crit out of the circle that you throw on the ground and give you a smaller amount of crit that stacks, much like Unerring Vision did as the Azerite trait in BFA, and add that back to True Shot. That immediately makes True Shot so much more impactful because it kind of is wet noodle territory right now by itself. It just so happens that getting out all these aim shots in quick succession with the 4 set here in Shadowlands really makes the difference. But then speaking of that 4 set, if they were going to pick any of the bonuses, which a couple of the trees do have bonuses in there, I'd like to see them pick the every 40 focus you spend, you get 1 charge of trick shots. Because if they do not bring Chimera Shot, which is the 2 target prong ability for a 2 target cleave fight, we are going to really struggle when it comes to 2 target cleave fights. So because of that, if you go ahead and just give us 1 charge of trick shots every time we spend 40 focus, we'll be able to cleave, we'll be able to actually do well on a 2 target fight without it being absolutely broken like it does, because it has such good synergy with Unblinking Vigil, the legendary that we're using right now in Shadowlands. And now that we've talked about talents and abilities that are currently in Shadowlands, I'd like to talk about ones that are no longer in the game that I would like to see make a comeback in Dragonflight. And the first one is actually an aspect that's probably new to a lot of you that was removed at the beginning of Mists of Pandaria, which is Aspect of the Fox. So one of the main things that Marksman lacks is a true utility cooldown for your entire group, and Aspect of the Fox fits that bill perfectly. It's a 3-minute cooldown, and basically the way it works is while you have Aspect up, it only lasts for 6 seconds, but everybody in your party or group can cast all of their spells and abilities while on the move for 6 seconds. This could be really big, for example, for your healers on fights like Sire Denathrius or even the Jailer that tend to see heavy movement. This sort of group utility would be perfect in an asset for any 5-man group or raid comp, and it would definitely see more Marksman Hunters being prioritized, at least one, in Mythic progression races. And the next ability I'd like to see them bring back would be Silencing Shot. So Silencing Shot would pretty much just replace our Interrupt, which is Counter Shot. So it has a 24-second cooldown, much like Counter Shot, but not only does it interrupt the target, but it silences them for 3 seconds. So that would be great for Mythic Plus in particular. Not necessarily an issue with bosses, because there's not too many bosses that will constantly recast things. But in Mythic Plus in particular, there are a lot of enemies that will cast, you interrupt, and then they automatically recast again. And Silencing Shot would help fix that. And for PvP balance, it can be dispelled as well, since it is a magic dot. And the last ability I'd like to see them just straight up re-add to the game, which I mentioned it when I'm speaking about Flayed Shot, which would be Black Arrow. Black Arrow was a 15-second cooldown, it was an 8-second dot that did shadow damage. I would like to see them retool that and make it a 30-second cooldown, much like Flayed Shot was, and then every time the dot ticks, instead of giving you a chance to proc your kill shot, it has a chance to proc your lock and load, because that was the Warlords of Draenor version of Black Arrow. I feel like that would be a really nice added dot to our kit, and it also gives us kind of a really nice callback to our dot class survival hunter roots. And these last couple abilities I've already kind of touched on throughout this video, but all of them will be passives or retooling of older talents. So the first one, I mentioned it earlier, was Serpent Spread. So that was something that we used in Legion, so whenever you multi-shot, it would put a Serpent Sting on every one of those enemies hit by the multi-shot. So obviously it didn't do that much damage, it wasn't like the true Serpent Sting like we have now, otherwise that would be really broken. But that way we could just have a little bit of AoE passive cleave if they want to keep Serpent Shot in the game. Otherwise, I would still love to see them revert Master Marksman back to that BFA version. So basically making your rotation so much smoother by just making sure you're using those precise shot procced multi-shots or your arcane shots by making those free every time you cast aim shot. which in turn would work really well with lethal shots, and if they decided to add in the rhythm, it would make it even better. In fact, most of the build that I would recommend here in a second is going to be BFA Marksman Hunter at the very end of the expansion, because it worked so well, just nobody played Marksman Hunter to know. And then if they did replace Master Marksman with its BFA version, they could bring back piercing shots, which was basically the new version of Master Marksman. So whenever you hit an enemy with your aim shot, your arcane shot, or your chimera shot, they would bleed for a percentage of that damage. The last piercing shots was 30% of the damage. Probably doesn't need to be that much, but the current version of Master Marksman is 15%. And then if they do not bring Killshot back in Dragonflight, they definitely need to make sure that careful aim, it goes back to the 80-20 zone, meaning that you do 50% more damage above 80 and below 20 with your aim shot, which is going to be our bread and butter ability, just like always. And also adding the unerring vision crit to your true shot, which would stack every second and then cap at a certain percent. It doesn't need to be the astronomical levels that you could make unerring vision be at the end of BFA, meaning almost over 100% crit chance, but you could stack it up to have like almost a 50 or a 55% crit chance by the time it's stacked up for 10 seconds. That way you wouldn't have to run with as much crit, and then you also didn't have to rely on any of your enemies standing inside a resonating arrow circle. And then finally, just making sure that they bring back in the rhythm. It was one of the strongest Azerite traits for a Marksman Hunter in BFA. It made rapid fire feel so good, and it made lethal shots, which potentially lowers the cooldown of rapid fire, to be that much more valuable because you got that percentage of haste afterwards for 8 seconds. And this last section really quick would be a theoretical combination. In fact, it was the combination I used at the very end of BFA. So even though Marksman was considered the worst spec out there, I was absolutely burning up the charts DPS-wise against some great players in Mythic Plus and even in Mythic Rating in Nyalotha, all using this exact build. So I had In the Rhythm, then Lethal Shots, then the old Master Marksman talent, Unerring Vision on my True Shot, and then Calling the Shots. And the whole goal of this build was to get as many true shots out as possible, thanks to casting those free arcane shots that we got from using our aim shots from Master Marksman, and then losing 2.5 seconds every time I casted an arcane shot off of the remaining cooldown of true shots. And in the meantime, I was able to use my In the Rhythm haste to pump out more arcane shots if I needed to, would have more focus regeneration thanks to the amount of haste it would give, and then also every time I was casting that arcane shot or multi-shot, I had a 30% chance to remove 5 seconds left of the remaining cooldown on rapid fire. So I would constantly be pumping out rapid fires to do more damage that could be double tapped. I would be getting out more true shots, and this was overall so much fun to play because it was literally a machine gun build, and it was great for both single target and for AoE. It was something fun that almost any Marksman Hunter could have picked up and done well. And that pretty much sums up what passives, talents, abilities that I would like to see either make a comeback, jump straight from Shadowlands into Dragonflight, or be reworked just a little bit to make Marksman Hunter a fun and engaging spec for everybody to play. And if you will notice, a lot of those recommendations were BFA, or at least found at the very end of BFA. And because that nobody played Marksman Hunter pretty much at the end of BFA, a lot of those really strong talents never saw the light of day when it came to Shadowlands, and I feel like Marksman Hunter suffered because of it. But if we add those in now, better late than never, this spec will be fun and engaging for the average player to pick up and do well, and you don't necessarily have to worry about throwing down a circle and all of your power be in the circle. It'll be in the hands of the hunter where it should be. And I'm really hoping we won't see readiness come back, or focusing shot, or even mark shot. So please, Blizzard, no vulnerability windows like we had in Legion. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and be sure and follow me over at Twitch at twitch.tv/Mr. Eggplant. I'm sure this video will turn some heads. Some people will really like it, some people really won't, and that's alright. I really hope you guys will leave me feedback down below. Let me know what you're looking forward to for Marksman Hunter coming in Dragonflight. I cannot wait to share another video once they are revealed, so we can kind of compare and contrast, and I can see what Dragonflight has in store for us as Marksman Hunters. So thank you guys for watching this, and I'll see you in my next video or guide.